Tonight, I bring you something different. Just one story. But it's not small. It's not light. It touches deeper than most. You may not taste it with your tongue, but you will feel it with your bones. Because sometimes the world cracks open not with sight, not with sound, but with taste. There are doors between worlds you can't see. Some open with mirrors, some with shadows, and some, strangely, with flavor. This is where we begin tonight, on the thin edge where memory and hunger blur, and reality itself can turn bitter or sweet. What I'm about to share is not advice. It's not a lesson. It's just a story. My story. But if you've ever chased something too far, maybe you'll see yourself in it. I have spent a lifetime chasing flavor. Not just food and drinks, but flavor in its purest, most transcendent form. The kind that lingers behind your eyes long after the meal ends. The kind that makes your knees tremble with memory years later. I am, or rather I was, a food critic, a sommelier, a seeker of the sublime. My palate was my compass, my altar, my warhorse. I had tasted fruit that only blooms once a decade in the shadow of Himalayan cliffs. I had dined in temples where silence is the final course. I had cried, unashamedly, joyfully, over a slice of fermented persimmon, aged in cypress smoke. I was not just a critic. I was the critic. Columns syndicated across continents. Awards polished like relics. Restaurants prayed for my shadow to cross their doorway. I had been courted by kings, toasted by pop stars, feared by chefs who could command armies of apprentices. That's all me. Or was me. Few weeks ago, I had signed on as a guest judge for the new season of the country's most beloved cooking show. Cameras, lights, applause. It was to be the crown jewel in a career carved from appetite itself. The producers promised a stage big enough for my hunger. I almost laughed then, thinking there was no stage big enough. And then came the bottle. One day, I received a letter, not the email. Proper letter, in a black envelope made from craft paper and golden ink. I was quite surprised. I was invited to a private wine evening, hosted by a certain Eastern European oligarch, a man known in a small circle of people with a reputation for collecting forbidden things. I can't mention his name here, as it was part of the deal, and I don't want to break it for my safety. The invitation was handwritten, sealed with wax, and smelled faintly of old paper and elderflower. He had acquired, he claimed, a bottle of wine made from an extinct grape, a varietal believed to have been wiped from the earth before Napoleon first tasted war. There were whispers of 3 bottles in existence. I had heard the rumors, of course. One had vanished in a fire in Palermo. Another, lost in an ocean freighter decades ago. But now, here it was. To be honest, I didn't believe it was original bottle, but of course my interest was at the greatest level, as trying something like that, his unique experience, can happen once in a lifetime. So next evening at exactly 6 p.m., as was mentioned in a letter, his driver picked me up from my house. The driver looked a bit scary at first. Huge, grumpy man in a black suit wearing white gloves, but appeared to be quite friendly and relaxed. Even he never replied anything except "yes, sir," or "no, sir," or "I am not aware, sir," to my silly questions while we were on the way to the chateau. After around 30 minutes, we reached the place. The property was filled with armed guards, cameras, peacocks, and some other exotic birds walking freely, and plenty of white marble statues of Greek and Roman gods. That's how ancient kings probably lived, I thought. The butler met me near the car. He was not young, tall, but very polite, and accompanied me to the wine house, which was a separate building in the very end of the garden. The host was already there, waiting for me. I will skip a part of my small talk we had with him. Not that I don't want to, just because I was asked to sign a certain agreement not to do so. One thing I can say, the man looked as usual person at first, which you see every day on the street. But the watch on his wrist told the opposite. It costed more than all my belongings, and probably belongings of all my friends together. But I'll tell you one more thing. He asked me one question before he took out the bottle. I think I'll remember that question for all my life. He asked, "So now, how desperate are you for the whole new taste experience, my friend?" I didn't get it serious. I laughed and said something like, "Yes, too desperate, always ready." I thought it's a metaphor, but right now I think it was exactly what he meant. The bottle itself was otherworldly, greenish-black glass speckled with imperfections, like starlight trapped in seaweed. The label was hand-inked in a language I could not place, with no date, no vineyard. It looked ancient, mythical, impossible. He poured. I don't know why, but my heart was beating so hard, as it was my first night with a girl or something. I sipped, and I wept. For a moment, I even forgot where I am, and maybe even who I am. It was not wine. It was memory, blood, gold, music, and something else. Something like the taste of falling in love while dreaming. I could taste shadows and sunlight, salt and ancient wood. It was as if my entire being had been retuned to a deeper register. It was a sip of pure life, knowledge, wisdom. It was amazing. I opened my eyes, and the host was looking at me with a hardly recognizable smile. I know that he knows what I just felt. After that, we went for a walk in the garden, had a small talk. I counted at least 7 security guards constantly watching each of my step and movement, but I think there were more. After a walk, he said he needs to leave, thanked me, and left. I was picked up by the same driver, and he drove me home safely. That night, I slept like a god. No dreams, just vast, warm stillness. The problem began the next morning. In the morning, as always, I made my usual espresso. I order my coffee mix from one plantation in Colombia, very proud of the blend they make specially for me. One sip, and I spat it out. It was terrible. It tasted of burnt rubber, cherry pits, and wild honey left too long in a metal drum. I accused my housekeeper of using spoiled beans. She assured me nothing had changed. She took it from same jar as always. I thought machine was broken, so I put a maca. Same terrible taste. That was concerning. Maybe beans got spoiled or something, I thought. The lunch was worse. A simple salade niçoise, ordered at a 5-star restaurant where I had dined 100 times before. Tasted like coins and rose petals. So vile, I spat it back onto the plate. The oily anchovies slick with the bitterness of varnish and rust. A crust of bread clung to my teeth like wet cardboard dipped in blood. The server swore nothing had changed, that the recipe was the same as always. No new spices, no substitutions. I demanded the chef, a man I had known for years, his hands trembling when I called his name. He tasted the same dish in front of me and declared it perfect. His eyes betrayed confusion, pity even, but not alarm. That was the first time I felt the fracture split open inside me. But it didn't stop there. At a Michelin-starred bistro in the evening, I ordered their signature duck à l'orange. The flesh, tender and pink to everyone else at the table, slid across my tongue like soap. The sauce, bright, citrus, sweet to them, was for me nothing but copper and ammonia. I slammed my fist into the table so hard that glasses rattled. My voice thundered through the dining room. "Are you trying to poison me?" The hostess, pale and sweating, ushered me outside before the other patrons began whispering. Later, in the safety of a friend's kitchen, I called and begged a trusted colleague, a fellow critic, a man I respected, to prepare me something simple. Scrambled eggs, butter, salt, nothing more. He plated it with care. I took one bite and nearly gagged. The eggs carried the flavor of damp wool and ash. I threw the plate against the wall, the yellow splattering like a crime scene. My friend recoiled, telling me it tasted fine, that I was imagining things. His pity stung worse than the flavor itself. He hasn't spoken to me since. Even at home, I was no safer. My maid, terrified but loyal, brought me a bowl of plain rice at my request. It tasted of rusted nails and wilted lilies. I accused her of tampering with it, screamed so hard that she left the house in tears. The echo of the slammed door lingered long after the taste had gone. Everywhere I went, every plate I touched, it was wrong. Familiar dishes twisted into grotesque strangers. It was as though the world itself had conspired to turn against me, to rob me of the only sense that defined me. And I was losing something. I didn't yet know what, but it was slipping from me like water through open fingers. The days that followed were a descent into gastronomy hell. Every meal became a crime against memory. Familiar dishes returned as grotesque caricatures of themselves. I scoured my wine cellar, opened bottle after bottle, spat each one to the floor. My kitchen reeked of tannins and rage. I broke glasses. I howled. My neighbors even called the cops once. For a week, I lived like a madman. At nights, I lay awake in a silence louder than applause, replaying each failure on my tongue. Am I sick? Was it something in that wine? Or had I finally exhausted the gift I had worshipped all my life? My palate, my compass, my altar was betraying me. Each wrong taste was a dagger, each bland bite a funeral. Doubt gnawed at me. Had I fooled the world, fooled myself, for decades? Perhaps I had never tasted at all, merely imagined it. The thought was unbearable. I stared at my own hands as if they belonged to a stranger. My body still lived, but the essence that animated me, the joy, the clarity, the sacred hunger, was rotting away inside, leaving only bitterness and rust. It was not just loss. It was haunting. Of course, I turned to science. Doctors, specialists, neurologists, MRIs, scans, endless tests. Result? They found nothing. No infection, no inflammation, no damage. I was absolutely healthy. One young resident dared to suggest psychological fatigue. I nearly tore his stethoscope in half. Then, of course, I thought a lot about the wine. I'm not into mystics. I don't believe in curses, magic, or whatever. But I didn't know what else to think, so lost I was. I decided to return to the chateau. It was actually not so easy to find that time. The driver might be a professional and drove there some hidden ways that time, but I found it eventually. So what I got? The oligarch was gone, had left days earlier. That's what I heard from one of the staff I luckily caught leaving from duty. I had nothing else. No forwarding address, no contacts. Then security officer came out and very gently told me to leave from the property. I left, of course. I stood outside that house for hours, staring at the windows, hoping he might appear. He never did. The house was empty. No one was there. I went home, but it was somehow no longer a home I wanted to come back. Next morning, I woke up from my phone ringing. The TV show called. The producers were polite, kind even, but they said they were going with someone else. A younger host, more relatable. A man I loathed for his boorish taste and synthetic charisma. I hung up without a word. I let the phone slide from my hand. Sat in the ruins of my once beautiful kitchen, the table littered with empty wrappers, grease-stained napkins, and the remains of foods I would have mocked a month earlier. I was eating peanut butter on white bread. It didn't taste good. But it didn't taste too bad, at least, and that had become the new definition of comfort for me. I fell asleep. I dreamed about the wine bottle. I heard the sound of that wine hitting the bottom of the glass. I think I even smelt the aroma. It still was the proper, real smell as I remembered. Excited. I became so excited I woke up immediately. I felt so sad. It was not scary. I was sorry it wasn't enough time to enjoy that fragrance of God's, that one taste I still consider real. I still remember, right? I got up from a couch and accidentally stepped on a packet of some long-forgotten bag of junk food. Butter and herbs flavored breadsticks. Ridiculous. An abomination. But I was surprisingly feeling quite hungry, and my food standards were anyway buried. I popped one into my mouth. I felt that my knees are bended from weakness for a moment, like the second before fainting. It tasted like food. Not glorious, not transcendent, but still recognizable. It tasted like what food should taste like, I think. I don't know really, but at least I felt so. I chewed slowly, afraid to swallow. The flavor held. My heart skipped, my breath caught. I reached for another. My whole body and mind were applauding, if you can say so. It wasn't any miracle itself, but it was a crumb of the world I once knew, and perhaps, just perhaps, that was enough to begin again. A few weeks passed. Slowly, my taste began to return. Not in the old way, not in the thunderclap brilliance that once defined me, but in fragments. A slice of apple carried a whisper of grass and sweetness, a crust of fresh bread, a hint of warmth and wood fire. It was never complete, never perfect, but I no longer chased perfection. Each day became a quiet lesson. I kept a small notebook on the kitchen counter and wrote single words after every meal. Iron, smoke, dew, honey. Not reviews or scores, just fragments of experience, like brushstrokes in unfinished painting. For the first time in life, flavor was not conquest for me, it was discovery. And with each word, I felt something inside me reroot itself. One morning, I found myself making an omelet. No audience, no cameras, no competition. Just me and fresh butter foaming in the pan. I folded it gently, placed it on a plate, and ate in silence. It was not perfect, but it was mine, and I realized then I had changed. I was another man. That was the same day the parcel arrived. A small box, plain, unmarked. Delivered with no explanation, no delivery label, no courier logo. Just the box and my name written carefully on the top. Inside, beneath a layer of straw filler, I found it. A black envelope. Gold letters glinting faintly against the dark. I stared at it, and one question struck me. Had I really healed, or only forgotten that I once tasted the eternity? Maybe the question was never about taste at all. Maybe it was about how much of our world is built from what we think we know. And when that crumbles, what remains? Perhaps the crack is already inside us, waiting. The only thing left to ask is, when it opens. And if you've ever questioned whether your senses serve you, if you've felt a fracture open, not in the world, but in yourself, if you've wondered what's real when even the senses betrays you, then maybe you saw that too.